Hello, hello. Welcome to The Insider, where we tell the untold. My name is Togozile, and today on the program, we're joined by a leader whose voice has become one of the most outspoken and influential among Zambia's independent legislators. Binwell Chansa Mpundu, Member of Parliament for Nkana, has built a reputation for bold commentary, strong advocacy on youth issues, and at times, controversy. Today, we sit down with him for an in depth conversation on his journey, his politics, and the future he envisions for both Nkana and Zambia. Honorable Mpundo, welcome.
Takozile, thank you so much for inviting me today. Quite a beautiful intro, one of the kind I've received in a long time.
Well, to begin, let's first understand the man behind the politics. Can you walk us through your early life and key experiences that shaped the leader you are today?
So, rightfully put, my name is Binwell Chansa Mpundu. I was born on the 9th of October in 1982. That makes me 43 years as of last month. Look, I'm just an ordinary guy who's not at the best of things growing up. Had a fair share of struggles, through life, to a point where at some point in my secondary school days, I literally, dropped out of school in my 11th grade. Miraculously, I found my way back to school after a day of being on the street, begging for somebody to take me back to school. Very painful story that I often don't like to share. My struggles went as far as or beyond going back to school. After I completed my secondary school education, I spent 3 years of not going to tertiary institutions because nobody was available to obviously take me back to school. This almost saw me going to military, but as fate would have been, I missed out on opportunity to go to the military. The other things you wish to know is that life took me to studying accounts from home. I studied NATEC then. You remember the NATEC program was one of Zambia's elite accounting programs.
Yes.
I made history. I was one of the few that completed NATEC in 1 year, 6 months. So I have had a stint with the private sector. I worked in the private sector as an accountant. Later on in 2006, joined politics with the Patriotic Front. Of course, my political activities goes as far back as my secondary school days. I was almost expelled in my 12th grade in school for going to support Ben Mwila then. I am married. I have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. My firstborn son has just completed grade 12. My beautiful wife from Freeland and Deka Chela has been holding our family together, and so I'm grateful, to God for this woman. So my political journey or my public service journey goes as far back as 2017 when I was appointed to serve the city of Kitwe as district commissioner. I was DC for 3 years from 2017 to 2020. As it were, there were squabbles within PF that saw me being my contract not being renewed at the end of the 3-year term. In 2021, after the second rejection by PF at adoption stage, I decided to work solo and participated in the last election as an independent candidate. And here I am as an independent member of parliament for the constituency called Nkana. That's briefly Binwell Chansa.
Yes. Okay. So, what did that experience teach you about the realities of governance on the ground? The fact that you were rejected by the PF and then decided to go solo?
So, first of all, I wish to state clearly that my struggles in my early life, brought a fire in me to want to be part of the leadership journey for our country, I am one of those who believes that everything is okay for Zambia except leadership. Because if you're to compare Zambia with every other country or any other country that is successful in context, I think that Zambia is worth much more in terms of what God has blessed us with. Here we are talking about our mineral endowments. We're talking about our water resources. We're talking about our arable land. I think the size of our land is such that we can feed the whole continent. Now, so the question therefore is, where did we get it all wrong? It is at leadership. Now, those struggles I went through as a young boy, failing to go to school, I know that some people today mock me for not having a degree, or I don't have a degree.
You have a diploma in legal studies, in law,
So
right?
I struggled to. By the way, I actually tell people that even when you laugh that I have got a diploma and I've got an accountancy certificate, it didn't even come easy to have those. And this is not a story of Binwell Mpundu. It's a story of many Zambians who, despite the country being so blessed with opportunities, still people struggle to even just go to school. Okay? Even when we have free education today, what are the odds or the chances that the child who has gone from grade 1 to grade 12 without paying anything will make it to tertiary institutions? Look at the opportunities in the universities. How many are given a chance at the bursary scheme or the loan scheme, as it were? The rest, therefore, have got to pay for themselves. How many can afford today to pay the fees in the university? How many can afford to pay fees in a college? Okay, so many have struggled like I did. And so it becomes very sad when I hear people laugh at me. And interestingly, when they laugh at me, I've actually been successful more than them with a diploma and an accounting certificate. But you see, it is through experience that we are shaped. And I have had a very fair share of experience having worked in the private sector. I see how smooth the private sector operates, the efficiency. But when you now go to the private sector, the rustiness in which systems operate with the private or the public sector is quite something that really needs a complete overhaul. And so I come to the table as a young politician with immense experience, having experienced both worlds. Okay, the private sector, the efficiency. If you look at you look at as an example the efficiency of the procurement processes in the private sector, the mining as an example. One product will be needed, and in a week's time it will be procured. For government, it will take a year to procure the same product. And so this for me has shaped the kind of leader that I am and the kind of leader that I would like to be. My engagement with the community, I've been a grassroots leader myself. Forgive me my errors and Ewa Mbemba, so you can understand. But I've done very well over the years, in adjusting. Yeah. So being a grassroots leader myself, I have lived first-hand experience with the people to understand their anxieties, their aspirations, their dreams, and how much of those dreams are shattered. I'm an example of one person who's never giving up, spirit has seen me here. But there are many others who have failed. And I think that it is a responsibility of us leaders to be able to listen or experience in real time and be able to use that experience, to shape up policies that will then, attend to the needs and the shortcomings of our people in the communities.
Good morning, Honorable.
Morning.
Thank you again for joining us today.
Very well, thank you so much.
You mentioned a notion of you never giving up and how leaders need to translate that, note into the general public. Going back to how you rose as an independent member of parliament, obviously after having your, interactions with the PF at the time, what challenges did you face, and how do you feel other members who stand independently would fare in today's, democratic climate, if I can call it that?
So first of all, I joined PF quite early. in my life as a young person, when it was even not fashionable for anyone to join an opposition political party then. Because if you compare today and back in the days when we joined politics, I can see history being rewritten. Um, the political scene then was violent. You remember the days of the MMD, the likes of the William Bandas, they were ruthless. And so joining PF was quite scary then. Okay. I see this pattern repeating itself, and I know where the problem is. It's because now UPND, started housing all those who were the mercenaries of violence in the MMD. Okay. But I'll tell you this: the struggles of young people in Zambia's politics goes as far back as maybe 20 years after our independence. Because remember, it is the young people of Zambia that founded Zambia, or let me say in context, who liberated us. History will tell you that the likes of the KK were less than 40 at the time of the struggles. Many of those who served with KK and in different portfolios were quite young. You know the stories of Venon Mwanga, how old. No. Simon was actually the oldest in the cabinet of KK. He was actually 42. But the rest were very young. But now, if you look at the others who served, maybe not in cabinet, but who served in other portfolios like VJ was actually very young. If my memory serves me right, VJ should have gone into a foreign service maybe less than 20, as well as RB. So I'm driving to a point for you to understand that it is actually the young people who actually built the foundation of our politics today. Now, over the years, those who went into the politics grew with time. They decided to now alienate the young people from the political equation. And so over the years, the young people have struggled, okay? Despite the fact that it is actually the young people who does the actual donkey work at politics. When it comes to campaigns, it's the young people. When it comes to the numbers, it's the young people. When it comes to the violence, the very few times, maybe not, that you see an old person being caught up in the fracas, like what happened yesterday with Honorable Given Lubinda,
in Kabwe,
being
yes.
abducted by the youth. Okay. Interestingly, there's always somebody behind the scenes whenever there's violent activities being recorded. And so my personal experiences and struggles, first of all, I joined PF much earlier, around 2006. I rose up in the ranks and file of PF from being a branch chairperson. I was constituent youth secretary for Nkana. In the 2011 elections, I was campaign manager for our MP in Nkana, Honorable Kazabu, who has now been appointed Local Government Service Commission chairperson. Later on, I rose to the rank of a provincial youth secretary, and later on promoted as provincial secretary for the Copper Belt PF. Now, interestingly, despite all the efforts that I put in managing the young people of the Copper Belt PF, managing the entire party establishment of PF on the Copper Belt, 2016, very clearly I should have gone to parliament. I was ignored on the basis that I was young and I didn't have, any account or bank account to speak of. Okay, as it were, we soldiered on because of loyalty. 2021, interestingly, they again decided to ignore my application for the second time. At that point, for me, I decided there was need for me to chart my own path. And that has been my message to all young politicians. If you're one of those naively who think that the old folks will give you an easy opportunity to sit on the table of decision making, your dream may never come alive. Like me, I encourage young people that times have come that young people must chart their own path. So these are rich experiences for me that nobody can fool me today, to go chanting or being a praise singer or praising anybody else. I think that an opportunity presents itself for young people now to see what's happening elsewhere. You wish to know that the entire continent is going youthful. Senegal led the way. There's a 44-year president in Senegal. This is a gentleman who was in Kitwe, I'm reliably informed, who is now president. Burkina Faso, even though he came into power through unorthodox methods, but he's still doing miraculously well for that country. Our neighbors in Botswana have a relatively young leadership. The president is relatively young, 54, but the rest of the cabinet is extremely young. So you can clearly see that the young people across the continent are waking up to the realities that, contrary to the assertions that young people are future leaders, that was an adage coined up simply to relegate us to being spectators. They lied.
Fantastic. In Toko's preamble, she did mention obviously your aspirations have been very loudly spoken, especially about your constituency in Nkana. Obviously, this is your home. You definitely have to put the work in, as well as the majority being Zambia. When we speak about the challenges that are faced in Nkana, streaming onto Zambia, and we spoke about this briefly in our prior interactions, I think it's important to lament and hear your point of view on what really is the problem and what needs to be done in your constituency specifically, and maybe a touch on what could be done in the entire Zambia to push us forward to that economic point that could ideally, put us in the safe zone, if anything, for the country.
Very important question. First of all, Zambia should not be where it is now. I think that we deserve better. And I read the Bible quite a lot, and you will agree with me that, the parable of the talents, God gives us all these blessings, and we're letting go of all these blessings whilst our people are wallowing in abject poverty. I'm indebted to Nkana dearly so, because the people of Nkana believed in me when nobody else was able to believe in me. They gave me an opportunity against all odds when everybody had decided to reject me. Okay? And so my view of Nkana is that Nkana should have been the best constituents, because look, the contribution of Nkana to the economic outlook of this country cannot be underestimated or cannot be ignored. You know that literally Zambia has been built from our copper resources. And Nkana contributed significantly because of our mining establishments. We are talking about Mopani, KCM. Nkana is a house to or a home to both these mining giants. And over the years, these two mines contributed significantly to the resources that built Nkana. But when you look at what Nkana is now, it's a sorry sight. Our people struggle just literally with water. Our people struggle with infrastructure. The road network is pathetic. I have tried my best in my 4 years to try and push for a fair share of, this economic allocation to Nkana. I have done a little bit of what I could within my own limitations. I am not very proud of what we have done. I think that we could have done far better. And so I sit in a position where I yearn for much more for my people, but I am limited because of the obstacles that are in front of me. Because trust me,
CDF not been able to aid on some of these projects.
trust me, I sound very controversial on the subject of CDF, and it will take you a moment to listen to me. CDF is just around now 2026 budget is 40 million, right? So when you break down the CDF, 40 million, so you'll have 5% that goes to skills development. So young people are sent into college to study skills. Out of the 40 million, so remove 5%, that goes to women and youth empowerment. Remove 5% that goes to the council as administrative fee. So you find that what remains out of 40 million will just be less than 20 million, maybe about 18 million kwacha. Now, when you look at 18 million kwacha and the needs of an urban constituency like Nkana, that's like an insult. Now, all things being equal, had central government been very active, because CDF comes in as a complementary. In fact, the design of CDF back in the years of the late President Frederick Chiluba was basically a tool to augment the work of an MP in the constituents. Because the way things are, everybody thinks that the MP should be able to attend to all their problems. So it was found that the MP was being bombarded too much with these needs in the communities. And so Frederick Chiluba Meiso, rest in peace, and team decided, let's create a little fund that would then support an MP in addressing these small needs, like a bridge has collapsed, can we repair it? Okay. In fact, when the fund was initiated, it used to be given out to the MPs in cash form, and the MP would actually handle that amount. But as the fund kept on growing, there was a need for, obviously accountability, and other institutions came in. It was widely thought that the council should now manage the fund on behalf of the constituents. Okay? So this fund is meant to simply augment my work, okay? Helping me attend to those small pressing needs. The challenge we have now is where the whole country is focusing on the CDF, and literally all the ministries have abdicated their responsibilities. Now, had the other ministries been fully engaged in attending to their responsibilities, like the Ministry of Education, remember, when we appropriate the budget, we actually give the Ministry of Health money for infrastructure, money for drugs, and everything else, meaning that if we need a clinic in Nkana, the Ministry of Health must do it, right? The Ministry of Education, we give them resources for infrastructure development. So if we need classrooms, if we need desks, they're supposed to be handled by the Ministry of Education. And so is the other ministries, the Ministry of Home Affairs. They are given resources to be able to buy vehicles, as an example. Okay. But you find that today, CDF, that only accounts for maybe 2% of the national budget, is everything that everybody talks about. Okay. So it's like we expect miracles out of a 2%. Meanwhile, what happens to the 98%? Now, when you look at Nkana's needs are roads. And we are not talking about gravel roads. Because if you compare Nkana and Shangombo, the people of Shangombo will celebrate you when you grade a road. Okay? If you grade a road in Nkana, Insele, they will insult you.
What do they want instead? Money and food.
So what the people of Nkana
They
needs
wanted
are tarred roads.
Tarred roads.
And it costs you 10 million kwacha for a kilometer of tarred roads. We need piped water. We need sanitation facilities. I'll give you an example. One of my biggest problem in Nkana was the sanitation problem in an area called Buchi. I persistently lobbied for this project, and I got myself a project for the people of Buchi. Guess how much the cost was? $7 million. $7 million is 10 years of our current CDF. So you'll have $7 million to attend to one problem in one ward. And it can take you 10 years of your CDF at the current standing. Do you think I can celebrate such CDF? Not at all.
Are you indirectly saying that you're not getting the help and support you're supposed to be getting?
No. I'll be very unfair if I said I haven't gotten, help. I have, in fact, I boast. Let me take this opportunity now, because every time I post something on my Facebook page, there are people who say, "Babino nangwale for president, tapade for chitamu Nkana." Oh, by the way, I actually have thrown this challenge to anyone. Nkana is amongst the best performing constituencies so far as development is concerned. If you talk about the road infrastructure, right now we have a project where we are constructing over 14 kilometers of tarred roads. If you ask the people of Parklands, there are already tarred roads or asphalt being laid as we speak. We have the first concrete road called Chiburuma Road, even though, from the pictures 2 days ago, the drainages are falling apart. But we have a 7.8 kilometers of the first concrete road. This didn't come easy. It came through constant lobbying, which is why I want to thank the UPND that they gave me those projects. The $7 million project of water and sanitation integration is something that I will go, many years proudly speaking about. So I have received a fair share of support from central government, which is why I have been very consistent on the need for central government to up its game in attending to these problems. Not that they haven't done enough, they haven't done what I have asked for. They've done part of what I've asked for, which they can do more. Which is why I am not, or I'm against the idea of us putting our trust or our eggs in one basket, as they say, around CDF, because our needs, especially me who comes from an urban constituency, are huge, far beyond what CDF can do. CDF can give us some desks, or tuma toilet, tuma 1x2, no tuma shani uko. Can it build me the infrastructure I need? No, it can't.
Okay, let's talk about the state of the nation. You have spoken strongly about Zambia's debt situation. What immediate policy reforms would you recommend to restore fiscal responsibility?
First of all, Zambia shouldn't be here insofar as the debt situation is. Why should you be borrowing? Why do people borrow? People borrow when they don't have. Have you ever gone to borrow when you have? No. So why is Zambia borrowing? Because Zambia has arguably a very healthy purse. All it needed was to transform our resources into, cash. Okay? I have argued so many times on this score, namely that today you have a government that is giving away literally your little earnings from the mining sector by way of these tax policies. Let me tell you something that would interest you, which is why I'm not so keen about some old folks who are in charge of our national affairs right away. Honorable Msokotwani, for me, has outlived his usefulness insofar as managing our economy is concerned.
But don't you think he has the experience?
Okay, so let's talk about experience. Honorable Msokotwani was economic advisor to late President Mwanawasa when Honorable Magande was Minister of Finance. When Mwanawasa died, Rupia Banda comes in and Honorable Magande, rather Musokotwani, is made now Minister of Finance. One of the remarkable achievements of Honorable late President Mwanawasa is that the tax policy then was what we called as the windfall tax. Okay, under the windfall tax arrangement, Zambia got seriously a fair share of resources from the mining sector. The economic advisor was Musokotwani. When government flipped and Honorable Musokotwani is Minister of Finance, he reversed the windfall tax to loyalties. And interestingly, Honorable Magande, or rather Musokotwani, even makes a decision to pay back the money we mobilized through windfall taxes back to the people who had given us that money. This is the same minister who is back here who allowed FQM to part away with $2.5 billion. You remember the famous case of the late CEO of ZCCM, Dr. Paz Kasolo, who dragged FQM into court.
Yes.
And it was found that the FQM managers had transferred erroneously $2.5 billion into a Panama a project in Panama. And that case was before the courts and the police, rather. Interestingly, when government changed, the new government under Musokotwani decides to shush. And that's how we lose all that kind of money. Okay? So, here I'm saying, all things being equal, our policies are chaotic and cannot deliver dividends now. And I think that I have done so much, even though when you people don't pay attention, I've done so much to speak of these policies that I think for me don't align with our needs now. I can cite a few examples. As an example, I have challenged the policy around the fuel subsector. There's no way in this world, there's no country that has allowed the fuel sector to be completely in the hands of the private sector. Interestingly, the UPND government, is running a whole complete private sector driven arrangement. And you expect we can develop. There's no private sector that is interested in building your country or developing your country. The private sector is there to make money. And so imagine when you deposit all your trust, your faith, and your developmental prospects in the hands of this private sector who is only interested in building profits for themselves. Can you develop? No. So here is me saying that our policies are misaligned. They are not applicable to what Zambia needs now. Zambia needs to start from the point of, number one, let's harness what we have before we can cry for help. If I was in charge of this country, the starting point would be, let us first of all seal the leakages where money is flowing out through. Okay? Now, you talk about corruption. For me, the corruption fight by the UPND is simply rhetoric, and many governments that have come before the UPND is simply rhetoric.
Can
Serious
we
fight.
can we define corruption?
Well, corruption in literal terms simply means the giving and taking of bribes and what. And so the expectation literally of people is, when you talk about corruption, you want to see money moving from one person to another. But I'll tell you that the bigger part of corruption lies in the decisions. So it's a decision that you make that deprives you, because corruption basically deprives you of the resources that would have otherwise helped you attend to your problems. It's a decision that you make that deprives you of these opportunities. I'll give you as an example. Today, you have a government that is literally struggling to meet the social needs. All right? Here we are struggling. And when I say struggling, even we, the members of parliament, are struggling, or parliament is struggling to pay us allowances for the first time in the history of this country. Okay? Parliamentarians have to go 2 weeks without being paid their allowances. That's how bad things are. Now, a country that is struggling as Zambia now cannot afford, as an example, to waive away duty on your export of minerals. Let alone, you can't have a country that is, desiring to prosper, that allows its minerals to be exported in concentrate form. You are exporting your jobs. One of our biggest and daunting tasks, or task as a leadership, is to create employment for the young generation. You cannot speak of creating employment if you're going to be exporting jobs through the export of your minerals in their raw form. Because when you add value to your minerals, you'll be helping create industries that ultimately will create employment. Our copper, doesn't it, don't you feel so sad, or doesn't it bother you that we have got to go and buy cables, electricity cables from China, when we are the ones who actually produce the materials used to make or manufacture those cables? Doesn't it bother you that we have tried to buy everything when the raw materials is actually produced here? Okay? So should you then be comfortable somebody says we're going to create employment when they are actually allowing the export of minerals in their raw form?
Honorable.
So let me just wind up there. So let me say that your leaders have misplaced priorities. Or let me say, we have a leadership now that relies so much on textbook theories. Theories that applied in the 19 Pendef Kondo are the theories that you think can apply today. Times have moved. Today we need practical solutions. If you want to develop your country, you should be able to mobilize resources. How can you mobilize resources? Change the way you arrange your mining, sector. I took a proposition to Parliament through a motion where I was proposing that let's begin to manage our own strategic minerals. Gold, as an example. It doesn't take so much investment into gold. It doesn't take so much. Our friends in Ghana have done a fantastic job in arranging their gold, resources. We can take a leaf from there, where government exclusively manages this resource, partners with the local communities, so the local citizens who go do the mining, then government through a special vehicle becomes the aggregator. all that revenue goes to government. You should look at the report of how much gold is exported to Zambia as reported by the countries that have been getting our gold and compare with the report, our own report of how much gold we are exporting. $1.7 billion is reported by external players or external media as the gold imported from Zambia. Zambia reports that we only exported about $40 million worth of gold. And here you are sitting that Zambia can develop.
Honorable, just to even go back, I mean, we get a lot of criticism, or there's a lot of criticism towards the government of the day because you are in opposition, calling out things that are real time or real issues. You spent over 10 years in the PF, yes? You said you joined in 2006.
2016. 2006, yeah.
2006 joining. 2016 was the first time you applied to be a member of parliament. You stayed on until you were ignored again in 2021 when you decided to go off as an independent party.
Yeah.
So this is over 10 years being in this one party. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you believe at the time, for the fact that you were there for even, over those 10 years, over a decade, that's a very long time to be part of any organization. Do you feel that at the time they were doing what you're lamenting they should do currently in the UPND?
So you may need to draw a distinction between the Binwell then and the Binwell now. Remember, when you speak of all those years that I was around PF, I was young, sometimes naive, very little understanding of how things ought to be done. Okay? Okay? We now have a deeper understanding and appreciation of how things are and how they ought to be. Am I proud of what PF did? No, I am not proud. I think that PF could have done better. We could have managed our resources better. We could have managed the people better, which is why I think that I speak from a point of fully knowing the opportunities that the UPND has in doing better than what we did. So when you see me constantly hammering the UPND, it is from the point of me knowing where we messed up. Okay? Corruption was there in the PF. But guess what? Corruption has risen by over 500% under the UPND rule. Here is me telling them, guys, wait a minute, we have been there. Corruption negated the strides that PF made. Because all the things that PF did, as an example, okay, PF went borrowing, the Eurobond, the famous Eurobond. Interestingly, when PF borrowed, we could actually see some semblance of development. Okay, we could see some roads being built. You have the famous flyover. Shani?
The flyover bridge.
Papa, KZ, and what? You could see the hospitals that they built. You could see schools, both secondary and tertiary institutions that they built. But the little reported corrupt, acts.
The UPND brought in free, but they brought in, they brought in free education.
You said little reported corrupt.
Yes.
Little.
Yes, because when you compare the two, the report indicates now, and this report is not me. If you go to the Financial Intelligence Center report, they've projected corruption to have risen by over 590% since 2021. So when you speak of the corruption of the PF, no, but come on. If corruption rises by over 500%, so
why
here
did
is
it
me.
seem like
I'll
with
come
the
back
PF
to I'll come back to the free education. Here is me saying, colleagues.
No, but I wanted to say, why did it seem like, is it because the PF were careless and they didn't care? Because it was more,
No.
more visible in the PF than it is now in
I
the
can tell you
UPND.
that much more of what we saw or heard under the PF was propaganda by the UPND. I'll tell you a few facts. The UPND actually castigated the PF over load shedding and suggested they're just incompetent. If you are about blaming it on the weather, they are just incompetent. In fact, President Church would say, Dubai all right? So we blamed the PF so much on load shedding. Remember the hours of load shedding under PF were quite manageable than now.
Yes.
All right?
True.
But PF was projected to be so evil around this subject. Why? Because of the propaganda. PF was projected to be so corrupt. In fact, even up to now, UPN says all the Eurobond the PF borrowed, they gave to their girlfriends. At mwali amasile queen, what's that compound? Kula kusani granddaddies.
Salama.
Kusalama. At my PF bale pera amasile queen. Sorry. Now, that is to put this into context that much of the evil you saw in PF was actually plagiarized or exaggerated.
But that's the job of the opposition.
Propaganda. No.
We say you're doing the exact same thing the UPND did in 2021?
No, I'll tell
currently in 2025?
I can tell you that for me, we have a duty to hold this government to account. But even as we do that, we must base on facts. 99.9% of the things that have castigated the PF around, or rather the UPND around, are based on facts. And I can point to A up to Z of what they have been doing. As opposed to them more simply stand on their anti-you and say, we had a report at Parliament where, which was an audit that was done around how the Eurobond was spent. Interestingly, there was no money that was embezzled. In fact, there was just about $3 million, if I remember, under erroneous procurements out of all that Eurobond. But when you hear the UPN speak of the Eurobond, they will tell you PF the Eurobond in their pockets. But I will tell you what's happening now. I can even tell you that for instance, we have engaged a contractor in the name of the consortium to do our road called under the PPP arrangement from Lusaka into Ndola. Now, the PPP arrangement is such that government doesn't have resources, right, to embark on a particular project. And so you engage a company that has the resources. So they will do the investment, they will do the project, and then you have to pay them. All right? Now, for road project that's been found convenient that when a contractor does the road, then you surrender your toll gates, your toll facilities to them to start collecting the money until shika kumanesho ba ingishe musebo, right? Now, look at this. So the decision of surrendering your toll gate should only happen when the contractor has done the job. Or like the cases for the Ndola Lusaka Dio carriageway, we have been told they're supposed to spend $650 million compared to PF wanted to spend 1.2 billion. And so we celebrated that. But it's reduced from 1.2 to 650. And so when the contractor started, they're supposed to build 2 sets of lanes, 2 going, 2 coming, okay? Okay, so the old is supposed to also be rehabilitated, from scratch. Interestingly, instead of waiting until they finish the project, gates. Bamusokotwani na bapera bali aba consortium amatogates. They are collecting as we speak. Where are they taking that money? They are using that same money to do the road project. Tebuka bolalo. In fact, what tebuka bolalo? Uwoni usakala nyongo. In fact, okay,
no, let's transition. Let's transition into youth engagement and leadership. What practical policies do you want to see implemented to empower young people in governance and decision making?
First of all, the young people needs to be empowered in these sectors. Number one, we need to educate our young citizenry. And the UPND have introduced a free education policy, which I think must be commended, except the only missing link is that we must make it free education by its true meaning. Free education means that me as a parent, I am paying or spending nothing on the education of my child. What we have now is nowhere close to free education, because in fact today our parents are paying more than they used to pay back in the days, or they used to spend back in the days. Don't look at it from a point of how much we are spending going to school. Look at it from how much we are spending as parents to take our children to school. That's what free education means. Back in the days when there used to be free education, your child would get the books from school, from government. Your child would get the bags, the shoes, and the uniforms from the school. It meant, therefore, the parent would spend nothing towards the education of the child. That is what free education means. And for me, I think that we need to build up from where the UPND have left, make it now ideally free education. You also improve on the learning environment, because what we have now is 200 children sitting in one classroom, na teacher umo. The quality of the education is completely compromised. We are not blaming them. They've done what they could, but we can then improve on it. So part of the policies we must, focus on is education. Educating your children from kindergarten all the way to the tertiary institution. Right now, children are falling out of school at grade 12. They finish grade 12, it ends there, because they do not have an opportunity to go to a tertiary institution, either a college or the university. Like I said, there are limited places or chances for a child to go to university and get sponsored by government. I think we need to improve that to ensure that every child who wants to go to the university gets sponsored by government. And that is what I think we will do. For me, that's what we promise to do when we are in charge of the affairs of this country. We'll make it free. Of course, not free in the university, because they will have to pay. It's a loaning arrangement. They get educated through a loan arrangement, and they are paid, of course, using flexible terms. When you educate your young people, the next thing is, let's create opportunities for them to survive beyond school. So the opportunities are in two folds. Number one, there are those who are talented. They don't need to be given a white-collar job. It means, therefore, for the talent, let's build policies that promote and support talent. As an example, I went to Parliament and beckoned my friends that we need to create a film fund. When you put together a film fund, even you guys here can benefit from that fund to enhance what you are doing here. We can, the film industry is so huge. We have seen the Nollywood, the Bollywood, the Hollywood, how much revenue is, generated from there, how many millionaires have been built from that industry, and the spillover is great. The tourism industry, as an example, do you know that you dream of going to Hollywood because of what you see in the movies? So movies are a perfect tourism marketing. Okay, so when you build a tourism industry, you would have also built the other associated industries. So those who are talented in sport, those who are talented in recreational stuff, acting and otherwise, music, must be supported. So must be policies that supports those who are talented. But there also must be opportunity created for those who wants to get jobs. As an example, I mentioned that for us to create jobs, I have this in mind, which is part of our agenda as a movement for good governance. Creating jobs is easier. Imagine today government pronounces that we're going to have a 24-hour economy, at least in all the cities. We have 5 cities now, right? When you have a 24-hour economy, it means that you are going to double the number of employment in Lusaka, because there are going to be 2 shifts. So if you have 8,000 working in retail shops, on a gas station and Pashala, it means that for a 24-hour economy, there'll also be others that needs to work in the next shift. So if you have 20,000 jobs, it means that you are going to create another 20,000 jobs for the next shift. So part of what we think is that a 24-hour economy will create opportunities in the security sector, in the transport sector, in the retail sector, and the like. When you create empowerment hubs, which is part of our promise to the people of Zambia, we're going to create empowerment hubs. as opposed to these empowerment, programs by UPND have, where people are just dipping in. There's no system. Umuntu kuti afuma apoka empowerment, ku youth empowerment, aya kuli village banking apoka aya kuisa. So one person can actually be empowered across all manner of empowerment programs. Here we are talking about empowerments that are structured. So we are talking about establishing empowerment hubs in all regions or provinces, which also comes with mentorship programs, because it's folly for you to empower people that have not been properly cultured or now or coached on how they can, go about doing business. The accelerated industrial program is a big thing for me, because what we need now is to add value to our resources, our agricultural producers. There's no way Zambia can be exporting maize.
It looks like Honorable is campaigning currently.
No.
It's talking about the Icha movement.
It looks like Honorable is campaigning currently.
So I'm basically saying part of the policies we must have are things that give you results instantly. You must stop the export of our raw materials. Maize, as an example, how do you export your maize? Add value to your maize, because when you process the maize, mwalafu mobunga, mwalafu managaga. Waishwa gaga yo. Wakulile kuchingwa yo. So it takes, I'll tell you that there's power in these policies if you have the right policies. If today president was to pronounce that we are going to now have a 24-hour economy, if the president was going to say, I'm now banning all export of unprocessed minerals, if the president was going to say, I'm banning the export of our agricultural product until we add value, the results would be unimaginable, because you are then going to create opportunities for jobs and the likes. So those are some of the things that we envision should be done, in creating opportunities for those who are talented, creating opportunities for those who goes through school. So education and employment opportunities are number one, policies we must put there.
But your boldness has also attracted controversy. You know where I'm going with this, right? Yes.
I was hoping you would avoid that.
You
We
have
just
been
want a light
criticized at
moment.
times for using strong language in Parliament. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, so the sad part and the reality is that what is strong to you may not actually be strong to me. Forgive me for giving examples. I must give examples because we have to put context to this. I've been condemned for using words like Ichimuto. You guys grew up on the cover board.
Makopala, yes.
If Ichimuto is very normal.
It's very basic.
Very
Yes.
basic.
Yeah.
In fact, if turaita nokuita iwe mwana wando shifuma apa.
Yes.
It's very normal. I've been castigated for saying uli mukulu sana. Honestly speaking, mwana bakwalesa uli mukulu sana na wewe ni insede for strong language.
Yateke pan.
Okay, so now give me an opportunity to explain Yateke Panch. So Yateke Panch is a Bemba expression. I have no apologies to make. I'm Bemba. My mother is from Chembe. My father is from Mununga. Please careful with me, yeah? Mununga. So Yateke Panch is a Bemba expression that literally translates to mean relax. Now, in fact, the actual expression is teka matako panch. Now, because others will think ngawalanda amatako, you are insulting. That is why we simplify it to say yateke panch. All right? It is never and will never be an insult. Now, the challenge we have with society is that when you hear yateke panch, you outrightly conclude it's a very strong word. It's an insult. And oftentimes people say babino bansere. Based on these three words, yateke panshi, ulimukulu sana, ne chimutwe. Tell me, how are these three words an insult? Now, compare and contrast. We have certain very strong words in our other languages. Our friends, the Easterners. The Easterners have a statement that kunyenga wenye. Imwe. Kuri ifwe in Bemba, that is a very strong word. But should we stop them from using that word? No. Should we get offended because it sounds insulting? No.
But don't you think...
The Tongas would refer to ati kuchigala. Mujigala. Ifolo lusele. You know? But should we stop the Tongas from using our word? No.
But don't you think it's where you used it? The
Time
fact that
and place.
Yes, it's the fact that it's parliament.
So we have agreed that this is not an insult, right? Can we go stage by stage?
Yes.
Uli mukulu sana, yateke panshi, and ichimutwe. We have agreed, Toko, that these are not insults,
No, they're
right?
not.
So we now go to
outside parliament.
Outside parliament. Now let's go to parliament. The question in parliament is it allowed to use local words or local language in parliament? It is allowed. It is allowable in parliament for you to use an expression in your own language. There is only one requirement, that you must translate it. Right?
Yes.
In fact, the speaker would even say, meaning,
yes,
they're expecting you to now translate it. So what is expected when I use a statement in parliament, say, yateke panshi. What the speaker should do is to ask me, what do you mean? Then I'll explain. Now, if the speaker feels that is too strong a statement, I must then be asked to withdraw the statement. Or withdraw and apologize. It ends there. And it has been the norm in parliament that you use a word that is referred to as unparliamentary or vulgar, you are asked to retract it. If the speaker feels it's too strong, you are then asked to apologize for using that statement. It has happened so many times. It has been the tradition and custom of parliament. So you wonder why Binwell is being suspended for 14 days. You wonder. Is it Binwell or people have got scores to settle with Binwell?
Okay. Anyway, you have allegations of seditious speech. Do you think there was anything that was misunderstood about your message and it shouldn't have gone that far?
I'm very careful to dwell on that subject because I'm going to court. But I can tell you this. My statement was as simple as asking people to go and defend themselves. I'll still repeat this statement. When a criminal attacks you, you have a right provided by the laws of this country to defend yourself with equal measure to the attack. That is what the law says. Oh, I did a bit of a diploma in law.
The basics,
the basics. And what the law holds is that when you are attacked, your response must be measured against the aggression. It means that if somebody comes in Sembe, you can also use Sembe and you can claim self-defense because the response is measured, is commensurate with the aggression, unless you use much more force. So when you tell people, defend yourselves, self-defense is a legal concept that is there in our books of laws. It allows you to defend yourself and you can walk away with a crime based on the plea of self-defense. Now, the other issue is because I asked my friends to secure their firearms. Does the law provide for people to acquire guns or arms in this country? Don't you have a gun? You need to get one. Self-defense. Don't you have Toko? So the law allows... In fact, a panga, I don't think there's even a legal provision that allows you to have a panga.
Is it?
No, there's no. But there's a law that allows you to have a gun.
Yes, that way.
You actually go to get a gun, washta, then you go and get a license from the police. So it's within the law. In fact, it's a Second Amendment right in the US. It's actually a very strong campaign too in the US. The gun issue.
We're aware, yes.
You're aware, right?
Yes.
So I don't want to dwell on that subject because I may be caught, out of context.
Yes.
But I'm saying it's now up to the courts to be able to, decide whether what I'm being alleged to have committed is indeed seditious.
Okay, but lastly, before we close, sorry, Nawonga, what message do you have for Zambians that are frustrated at the current situation that we're going through?
Like Namadigo said in Malawi, you can't continue on giving excuses. 61 years down the line, we're still giving excuses. I want to add to that. You can't continue complaining. I have never thought there's a problem that was ever solved by people sitting complaining. Mwabu koluchelo, ye nafibi pefintu, na mailo nafibi pefintu paka bwaira bwacha nemyaka yapwa. Time has come for us to fix our problems. Now, to fix our problems, we would need us to fix the leadership.
But isn't it easier to give someone another 5 years to carry on whatever he started, unlike us stopping and starting afresh with someone new? Then we go through the same probably go through the same problem of the struggle.
The Bemba say ichikwanga bachimwena kumampalanya. It therefore means that if you want to be given an opportunity to continue, demonstrate within 5 years that you are capable. On the score of 10, if you are given 5 years, you must be able to give 6. Then people can say, 5 years. But by you PND on the score of 10,
but that's 4 years. You're in the 6 Malanda, which means the next year, muka vote less.
now on
As
the
a true
score of 10,
campaigner.
10 coffee now, show to the 6. To mark when news to the 6. Then we can say the Mukasha to mark when you to the 4 to batch 5 years. So what I'm saying is that all things being equal, when you're given an opportunity, yours is 5 years. Make the toughest decision in 5 years, make the deliverables in 5 years. If you fail, at least reach the half or cross over the half mark in terms of deliverables. Then people will be able to say, I think that naeshako sentumu pepa kutapudi short. No mba performance imwe 2 years uko abula light. Do you know what it means iwe? Light abantu balala mumfimfi for 2 years. We failed to fix the energy situation for 2 years. Now the challenge is it has now crossed over from just the electricity problem. We've now even gone to the fuel problem. Inonshta, first ufure wafua MP struggle to find money, shinda mashupire to find money for fuel. Nga wasange MP ya fuel, the number kuli tantamen, kuma filling station. So the energy sector is in chaos. Why is it in chaos? Because of policies that are, created to benefit the people that, sponsored UPND. You hear of the agrofuel, you hear of the Canona energy. It's all policies meant for helping us have some.
Don't you think he's a one-man team, eh?
Yes.
Don't you think the president is working on his own and the rest of his cabinet is just sleeping?
So, but when you have a leader who knows he's working on his own, because President HH knows he's working alone.
He knows,
You,
right?
you remember when he was addressing his officials at Mlungushi, he was saying, I've actually heard that all these MPs and councillors and mayors will not come back. So how am I going to perform? So he knows that he's alone. So then the question is, why has he still held on to the same team that is failing him? The same team that led him into an ambush in Chingola. Because there's no way you can lead a president to be stoned. That decision, first of all, let me say this as we end. It is regrettable that young people would go and stone a president. But much more regrettable that we have the people that are handling the presidency who can lead him into a war zone. You come from Chingola. You know Chingola is explosive. Westmore now, when all the opportunities for young people have been taken away, the dump sites. And then you take the president into that area where there's been riots and riots without combing the area. I was DC. President Tetese Kukitwe when I was DC. Before tatura sweepinga. Kwale boku sweepinga. Monse muma areas kumeka sure mu abama problems. Yonse, you attend to those problems. So that when the president comes, fintu fionse, you are just briefing him. Boss, you quite problem we not solve, but kushari hapa. But you have a people that would lead the president into that assault. That is why we are saying, unfortunately, we can't blame it on the people that are working with the president. We can only blame the president because he knows
He's not taking
he's working with failures and incompetent chaps, and he still kept them on. If I were President HH, kutinaba pianga was in and replace them with intelligent people like yourselves. You are tuma degree to
Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the movement, Honorable Binwell Chansa Mpundu, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure. We enjoyed your candor, your insights. Your controversy will forever be something that will be spoken about in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Nabonga Mulenga. As Tokozile would say, my name is Nabonga Mulenga. My colleague Tokozile Malawo. This is the Insider Zambia. We will see you on the next episode.
Mm.